Hi, today I'm here with Seth Monk, former AHS alumni and Buddhist monk. So to start off today, I'd like to ask you a question. What type of student were you in high school?
Good question. I don't think I was a very good student. I didn't really like being in school, actually. I felt that I was being kind of forced into a situation that I didn't want to be in. I actually wanted to be outside. I wanted to be doing things that, I wanted to pursue my own interests, I think. And school, I felt very much like I was being forced to kind of follow along with some structure that I didn't really believe in, I didn't really feel was beneficial for me. So I actually ended up, I think I probably got kicked out of most of the classes that I was in at some point or another in high school. I always had to go sit outside. And eventually graduated also in the bottom third of the class. And it's funny because my sister went to Phillips, and she said to me, she said, I know that you're smarter than I am, so... But it wasn't really engaging for me. I felt that school, it didn't really know how to reach me. And I wasn't really, from where I was, able to fully give myself to the process. Yeah.
So because of this, was this why you decided to take on meditation full hand?
I think that meditation came a little bit later. I think that my experiences at school, so at Andover High School, especially here, it really started inspiring me to look deeper into life, to look deeper into myself, to see what really matters, what's really going on. When I went to school here, like the movie Fight Club just came out, we listened to Rage Against the Machine and things like this, and so a lot of kind of the voices I was getting through the media, my generation, it was a lot this feeling of, that we're inside of some kind of a system that we don't want to be in, and this feeling of fighting against it or kind of figuring our own way through it. And my response to that was, I looked into philosophy, into physics, into poetry, into art. And eventually it brought me to spirituality. And I realized that actually spirituality was the thing that I'd been looking for, since I was 13. Was really the way to access the deeper parts of myself and to really see, what is this life about, right? We're all here in this place, in this life, in these bodies. What is this? What's going on? Why are we chasing money all day long and trying to become famous and rich? And what does happiness really mean? What's the meaning of life, I guess we could say. And so I started to gravitate towards spirituality, and then on that path, then I started getting into meditation. But I would say that they are definitely linked. Yeah.
Who would you say are your greatest mentors or people that influenced you throughout your life?
Good question. As far as the people that influenced me throughout my life, definitely, of course, my parents and my friends, and Andover as an entity. It's not a person, but as a place. But then really my own teacher as I became a monk. And I had the great honor of also meeting His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh and Ajahn Brahm and some really great Buddhist teachers who kind of just by being in their presence, by hearing them speak, by maybe being able to share with them or practice with them, it kind of, I would say that they rubbed off on me a little bit. There's something to be said about just being around people that helps you kind of move yourself in the direction you want to go. In Buddhism, actually, somebody once asked the Buddha, or he said, "Oh, Buddha, I think that having good friends, that's really like half of the holy life, right? That's half of this practice." And the Buddha said, no, actually it's all of this practice. That really when you surround yourself with people that are moving themselves in a good direction, you naturally kind of flow with them because we're social creatures. So I have something that I do often, so we know the saying being put in harm's way. I try to put myself in good's way. So I kind of have my own take on that. So I try to put myself in situations and try to put myself around people that I can learn something from, situations that I can benefit and grow out of. And so I would actually say that a lot of different people influence me in a lot of different ways. Also, I've visited about 24 countries. I've really traveled the world and talked to a lot of local people in a lot of places. And I really feel, just as much as I feel the Dalai Lama has really given me something, also, shepherds in Nepal that I spent a couple hours hanging out with, or children in India or farmers in Australia. So kind of wherever I go, I really feel that there's something to be learned from the people. There's something to be learned by the way of life, by the way things are done in other places, that I could also really benefit from and learn from and grow from.
How do you feel as a person? Do you feel like you're an introvert or an extrovert?
I guess I feel that I am an introvert that enjoys being an extrovert. So I feel somehow very introverted in terms of I really like being by myself. I really enjoy pondering things, trying to understand things, making adventures by myself, going off into the forest, reading. Really diving into the deep places of myself, like a diver, right? Going deep and exploring. And that being said, I really love people. I love connecting to people. I love learning from people. I love sharing. And there's something really beautiful to also be able to inspire people. And, when I was in the monastery, I felt kind of like I was like a miner. So I would go into my mind, my internal mind, and I'd be mining away. And I'd get a diamond, I'd get some really good insight or piece of wisdom, and then I could come out and then I could share it with other people. And there's something really beautiful in that process that we really can learn and grow and figure things out, but then also share that with others. And I think if we were all doing that, it would become, it's very supportive. And I think ultimately for community, to create community, you need people that are a little bit of both. People that really are in touch with themselves, that have a good sense of their own identity, their own morals, their own boundaries, but then also bring that into relationship. Because as a monk, I spent a lot of time alone, but it also became clear that we are also social creatures and we live in relationship. Even just when I have my water, there's a relationship between me and this water. As we're talking, we're in relationship. So life is also built upon relationships. And we need to learn how both to be with ourselves, but we also really have to know how to be in relationship if we live in this world.
How do you keep the positive influences stronger when you feel you're in a negative space?
Sure. Like everybody, I guess I sometimes feel that I'm feeling more negative or moody or pessimistic about something. I've learned not to take those moods that seriously. Unless that they're really based on something, like somebody in my family gets sick, for instance, and then I feel, afraid or sad. But ultimately, this sets me into a process of really feeling deeply into things, understanding things. I personally found great strength in sharing with other people when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling weak, when I'm feeling hurt, to share that, what I used to call weakness, but to share that wound or that place with others. And often, if we're feeling what maybe you're calling negative, there's some people that they then act negatively, right? So say you had a bad morning, I don't know what, your dog died, I don't know whatever happened. Mm-hmm. So you feel upset, and you could walk into school or work, and you can be really mad at people, and you could be pushing people around, and you could be a jerk, right? Spreading your negativity around, so to say. Or you could come in and you could right away say, guys, my dog died. Like, I'm devastated, right? And suddenly it opens up and people give you love and support and they're there for you. So I try to see my emotional states, especially the painful ones, or the things in my life that sometimes would be called negative. I try to use those as tools to also build connection, to ask for support, to not spread the negativity around, but actually to really express my pain in a way that other people can also support me. Because ultimately, I want to be happy, right? So if you want to be happy, why would you go around making everyone else sad? So it brings much more to just say, I want to be happy, but I'm hurt. And you open that up and you find that people actually will come and support you right away. So I think that's how I transform it.
Have you ever had students that you go visit ever want to become like part of, or like they've ever went to the extent of wanting to become a Buddhist monk and follow your teachings and maybe go to the places and become a Buddhist monk?
I was living in a monastery in Germany for 8 years. We had a lot of students coming in, a lot of groups of students. And during that time, because we were in the monastery, I was a monk at that time, so I'm not a monk anymore. You know, a lot of students would say, oh, this is really great, this feels great here, you know, I want to come and be a monk too. And we would kind of say to them, why don't you come and live here for a little while and see if it's a fit, see if that makes sense or not. And more often than not, they ended up leaving, because I think a Buddhist monk, it's a very romanticized kind of thing. I think a lot of people also feel very somehow disappointed, or you know, they almost feel a dispassion arise in them towards the world that they see around them. And when they hear about a monk, there's something in them that really, it speaks to them, right? It speaks to this idea of simplicity, this idea of meaning, this idea of going slow, right? Our world's very fast, lots of stimulation, lots of noise. So it really speaks to this part of us that actually wants to live a simpler, easier, more healthy life. So, you know, while teaching here, also in Andover High School and some other schools, I've had students come up to me afterwards and ask me about being a monk, with kind of the interest also to get involved. It's not something that I would say I'm kind of advertising in that sense. I actually think that it's a very difficult lifestyle. And if you really feel inspired to go do that, I think that's great. But ultimately, I think that the values that one can find in being a monk, the values of really, being true to yourself, living a life that really speaks to you, living in a more awakened, uplifted way, that's available to everybody. And I think that, you know, the monastic life, again, there's some people that really feel called to that, and if they do, I say awesome. But ultimately, I think it would actually bring more for people to maybe just go on retreats, to take some time out from their daily life, to really be with themselves, process things, see where they're at, kind of correct the course a little bit of what they're doing, and then go back into life, because also the world needs people right now that are a little bit more reflective, that are a little bit more compassionate, that are more understanding and awakened and vocal about that.
How would you describe the Dalai Lama being in his presence? How does it? How do you feel?
Yeah, it's amazing. So the very first time I met the Dalai Lama, or I guess that I saw him, I was in Hamburg, Germany. Huge stadium, 10,000 people. And I was sitting with other people, monks and nuns, and you know, the stage was in front of us, and then, you know, getting ready, and please welcome, you know, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and kind of the curtain parts, and he walks out. And I felt, it was a really strange sensation. I felt like the feeling of like rain, pattering of rain, but I felt it here on my chest, like on my heart, and I started crying. And I was kind of confused, I was crying, and then I look over, and then the two people next to me are also kind of, they're crying, tears are coming down. And it was something just about his presence, just people just started erupting in tears. And this happened, I guess, to a lot of people, like thousands of people just started crying the first time they see him. Whatever that is, right? Whether it's because they resonate with his compassion or his kindness, or that they really feel that somebody's there for them, or it's just a big buildup. I don't know exactly what it is, because I know people also cried when they saw the Beatles and things like that, right? So, oh, famous person, they start crying out of excitement. But it felt much deeper. It felt like I felt moved. It was moving and touching just to see him. So in 2009, I believe, I also had the chance to interview him. So I was a cameraman for an interview, and you know, so there's a group of us. We went up. We were in Paris, and it was kind of the presidential suite, and we were waiting, and this group kind of left, and they said, "Okay, now you guys go in." And I had the camera, so they kind of pushed me in first. And I'm sitting there holding the tripod, and I kind of push into this room, and suddenly the Dalai Lama is just standing in front of me. You know, and I want to bow to him, but I have the tripod, so I kind of just do this, and I felt really awkward. And he took my arm, and he's like, "Oh, like, where should we sit?" and this, and he spoke a little bit, and, you know, very kind. He was kind of bigger than I thought. You know, he has a nice presence also. And then we sat, and we did the interview, and it was very meaningful, very insightful. And then at the end, he just looked up and he said, "Okay, photos," you know, and there's something about him that's so very childish. It's very beautiful and very childish. You know, he gave a teaching in Madison Square Garden, I think, and on the stage he sat in a big throne, and there was a mattress as the top part of the throne. And he kind of climbed up there, he waddled up, and he sat, and he looked at everybody, and then he sat down on the throne, and then it kind of bounced, right, because it was a mattress. And then he looked down, and then he bounced again, and he started laughing, and then he started bouncing, you know. In Madison Square Garden, in front of thousands of people, you know, he's just sitting there, the spiritual leader, bouncing on a bed, laughing, right? So he has this very childish quality to him. And so at the end of this interview also, so everybody was leaving, he said thank you. We had, he gave us these blessing scarves. And I, took apart the camera, and I was walking out, and the security guards, were leading everybody out. And I kind of noticed that I was the last one leaving the room, and the Dalai Lama was behind me in the room. And I just kind of had this thought, the Dalai Lama is alone in the room behind you. The security let everybody out before me. So I put down the camera equipment, and I turned around, and I just see this presidential suite with the Dalai Lama sitting there. And I couldn't, I had to, so I just walked over to him, and I just took his hands, and I just looked him in the eyes, and I said, thank you. And I said, thank you. And I just, put his hands to my head, and he just kind of like rubbed my head, and he was like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. His hands are very soft, very big, warm, soft hands. But I also feel very blessed because I think not many people, possibly nobody really, to be alone in a room with him. There's always security guards or translators or somebody. It's pretty much impossible. Like somehow I slipped through the cracks of their system for that instant. So I feel very blessed just to have had that moment where it was just me and him in that space. And I feel really honored and touched. And he's really just an amazing individual. He has a really high moral compass. He's not interested in making people Buddhists. He tells people don't become Buddhists. He says in Buddhism they teach about the mind, they teach about meditation, they teach about human values. These are qualities that all people can learn from. Leave the religious stuff to the monks. Don't worry about that. So he's really interested in helping people, supporting people. And I think he's recognized worldwide as a true religious spiritual figure for this reason, because he really has a genuine care and compassion for others, and he actively promotes that. So yeah, it's really inspiring, really honored. Yeah.
You spoke on the Dalai Lama's presence. How do you feel when you're around or teaching kids? Do you feel like their aura to some extent, or is it just you're just with a group of kids? But
sure. Yeah, aura it's a very specific word. I would say I can feel people, sure. So if I look at somebody, I just look in their eyes, and I can feel kind of where they're at, how they're feeling, what's happening in their minds. I get a general sense of the person. When I'm in a group of kids, I walk into a classroom, I get a general feel for the class, and also individually I can kind of pick up some information, some emotional information about some kids, some people. And then when I lead a meditation, it's interesting you kind of bring this up in that way. When I lead meditation groups and we start meditating and I'm guiding a meditation, I've actually noticed that I can kind of feel the other people in the room. And as I'm guiding the meditation, I'll somehow give guidance also. So I'll feel that, oh, this person actually is thinking too much. These people need to calm down. And I'll kind of give instructions in a way that it kind of speaks directly to individual people in the room, just through kind of feeling them or perceiving them. I think, through my own sensitivity, just as a human being, I think all of us actually have this. As a child, I was very sensitive, I think. But through the practice of meditation, the more that you quiet yourself down, the more that you really get in touch with, those deeper kind of still places in yourself. And the more you really work on yourself, the more you work on your own mind, your own emotions, the more when you're with somebody else, you're kind of open to sense them and to feel them, right? So it's like a mirror. The more that you've cleaned that mirror, the more it can kind of reflect other things. So I think that's the way that I would talk about it.
So when you are meditating, do you prefer having music being played, or does that distract you from your meditating?
Sure. Personally, I like meditating with silence. I think music is great. A lot of people meditate with music. It's a nice bridge to kind of calm you down, bring you in. Ultimately, for myself, I feel that there's already so much stimulation out there. There's so much noise, there's so much information, so much distraction. To have a space where there's no sound, where there's nothing coming in, is actually so valuable and rare these days that I really appreciate not having any kind of noise. And that being said, you almost will never have a time where it's completely silent. So I teach meditation here at the high school And just this last week, there was a volleyball game next door, and we're up in the yoga room, which is kind of right next to the gymnasium. So as we're sitting and meditating, you hear the cheering and you hear the whistles, and ultimately there's no such thing as silence in a way, because wherever you go, there's going to be noise, and you can't control everything around you all the time. So you do your best to find a kind of quiet, secluded place, and then ultimately you just kind of let go of that. But I personally prefer the silence above music or other noise.
Would you have any regrets, or would you want to ever say anything to your younger self that you could now, like knowledge?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
That's a big question. I think when I was younger, I had pretty low self-esteem. I didn't really see my own value as a person. A lot of the messages that I was getting from the people around me, from society, from different things, I wasn't really able to touch the fact that I am also a powerful, good, strong person. And I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would really do my best to empower him, to really let him know that he's loved, that he's okay like he is, and to let him know that he can really make the experiences that he wants to make at his age in this lifetime. I think we, especially younger people, we feel very limited. We feel very limited in what we're allowed to do. Especially these days, I feel very disempowered. A disempowered feeling in the youth. And I think I would really, if I had that chance to talk to myself again, I would try to help him be able to really let all that beautiful, all those beautiful things that are inside, let those things out, and not have to wait so long before finally it can kind of shine.
So, is there anything else you'd like to share with everyone here?
I think ultimately, so we'll be leading a meditation after this as well, so we'll actually get into a real practice. So ultimately, I think it's important that aside from, practicing meditation, coming back into ourselves, practicing silence and stillness and contentment, it's also really important that we live our lives in a way that we really feel good about ourselves. I think a lot of people settle. They settle for a life that it's not really making them happy. It's not really what they want, but it's kind of, I wouldn't even say it's good enough. It's safe. I think a lot of people mistake safety for happiness. And they're more focused on surviving than they are on thriving, right? So they're more just, living a really safe life, but they're not really genuinely happy. And I think it's just important to remember that we can manifest the lives that we want. We can really go and do things that we want to do and follow our inner call, our inner voice. I believe each of us on a deeper level already actually knows what we want to do. We know who we are. We have a deeper sense of purpose in this world. And it's really important that we all follow that purpose, that we don't let society or other messages or what other people want from us, our parents or friends or things, clogging that up too much, that we really find a way to get deeply in touch with what is my real purpose here, what am I here to do, what really matters to me, and to really pursue that with abandon, so really just fully go for that. And that's kind of how I've been living my life, and I could say that I've lived an amazing life because of that way of doing things. And also then when I sit down to meditate, I don't have any regrets. I don't feel that I want to change things. So when I sit down to meditate, I'm already very peaceful. So our mind in meditation is also influenced by the way that we live our lives. Those two things actually are very much connected, right? So we'll be leading the meditation in a minute, but also to really know that that the way you live your life greatly influences your mental and emotional mindset or state as well. So,
Now, that's all the time we have here. Thank you, Seth, for very wise wisdom and knowledge that I just gained from that. Thank you.